With all this news about the iPads and how they're potentially going to be a lot more powerful, I want to talk about Stage Manager. And this is a feature that's on Mac and iPad and allows for a lot better multitasking, in my opinion. So, to start off, the requirements for Stage Manager, you need an iPad that has an A12X or an A12Z chip or the M1 chip or M2. Now, it doesn't really support any other chip, so either an iPad Pro chips or an iPad Air with the M1 chip, so the 5th generation. Now, it does support the iPad Pro 12.9-inch, 3rd generation later, the iPad Pro, all generations of the 11-inch, but it does, the M1 chip and later is needed for the ability to move apps between a third-party display and the iPad. So if you're using another display, you can't move apps freely between Stage Manager and the iPad unless you have an M1 enabled device or M2 for the iPad Pros. And it's available with a bunch of Macs going back to 2017 and later, but I do know with Intel Macs it's definitely not as snappy and as usable as it is on Apple Silicon Macs. And that's kind of part of the reason why this feature is limited to the iPad with M1 and later, as well as the A12X and the A12Z, as those chips were the blueprints for the M series in the Macs. I do think it's very interesting that Apple chose to support some Intel Macs, but not support regular iPads that have the A14, 15 chips in them, like the iPad Air 4th generation. Now, for Stage Manager on the Mac, it's been absolutely amazing, and just Stage Manager in general has been absolutely amazing. I've had it turned on my iPad Air and my MacBook Pro since macOS Ventura was released, as you need macOS Ventura or later for this to work. And to turn it on, you just go into Control Center and you click the Stage Manager option on the Mac. In the iPad, you do have to add it from Control Center, Settings, so you do that through Settings, Control Center, and then just look for the option that says Stage Manager, and then you can go ahead and turn it on. Now, with Stage Manager, there are some interesting settings on the Mac and the iPad, as they both have different settings. So on the Mac, if we go to Stage Manager Settings, there's about 2, which I don't think are bad settings, as I really don't think Apple needs to add more to the feature, as the feature works perfectly. So with Stage Manager, you can turn it on in the settings. You also have the ability to show your recent apps that you were in, as long as they're still open, and also show windows from an application, whether you want to do it all at once or one at a time. Personally, I leave mine at the all at once, because if I have multiple windows open of Safari or Mail or my calendar, it'll be able to show me all those windows in one app on the side, and let me be able to essentially pick which app window I want to go into. Now, on the iPad, the experience is relatively the same, as well, as you can open a bunch of apps, place them freely, and it essentially gives you more control over your iPad. Now, I do think with the iPad and Stage Manager, Apple is kind of getting ready to potentially put more software into the iPad, but we've had Stage Manager on the iPad now for 2 years, I believe, and there's been no improvements to it, which aren't really necessary, at least in my opinion, as there has been absolutely nothing that I would change about Stage Manager, except for maybe where the windows are displayed. That would be the only thing, the ability to let me pick where the windows are displayed. As on the iPad, they default to the left, and same with the Mac, but if you have your dock on the left or the right, the windows will essentially flip. As you can see here, I have my windows on the right because of my MacBook being the dock on the left, and personally, I think having the dock on the left is just more user-friendly, so I choose to keep it on the left. Now, if we open up a bunch of apps on my iPad, so I have 2 open right now, you see that the Notes app is front and center, as you can't really hide it away, as if you try to hide it away, it will bring it back to your home screen, but you can also see over here on the side that I can have the calendar app, and I can just tap into the calendar app to switch. And this has been very nice, and as someone who uses multiple apps on his iPad at once, the ability to not have to just kind of like swipe through like we do on the iPhone, where we swipe on that bottom bar, you can just tap on the screen to pull up another app. Now, you can also place apps side by side or essentially on top of each other with Stage Manager. So as you can see here, we've repositioned the calendar and move the Notes app over just so we have more room, and then there is a little gap in the middle so I can add, and then there is a little gap in the middle so I can add a third app, which if I may need, great. If not, you don't need to worry about it. Now, the ability to place my windows freely and kind of size them essentially freely is absolutely amazing with the iPad Stage Manager, as you haven't been able to have this like window-like feel of having the apps have their own view and window on the iPad. But now you can, and it's definitely very nice to have. Now, because Stage Manager groups apps together, it makes using the interface a lot more streamlined, as you don't have windows everywhere all over the place. But Overall, if you haven't checked out Stage Manager or you're on the fence about it, definitely try it. You can always turn it back off. But I do have to say, it has made the Mac experience and iPad experience much more user-friendly and even enjoyable, as my apps are where I want them. They're all collected in one spot and not hidden away in my dock or in the app switcher on the iPad. But let me know what your thoughts are with a comment down below. And while you're down there, if you want to hit like and subscribe, I'd appreciate that as well. But I want you to remember, today's a good day to make a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.